Here is a number that might shock you. After the age of 30, you lose between 3 and 8% of your muscle mass every single decade. And your glutes, which happen to be the largest and most powerful muscle group in your entire body, take the biggest hit. But here is what most doctors will never tell you. Walking, the exercise that everyone recommends for older adults, barely activates your glute muscles at all. In fact, a study published in the Journal of Electromyography and Kinesiology found that regular walking only fires up about 20 to 30% of your gluteal muscle fibers. Compare that to targeted glute exercises that can activate up to 90% of those same fibers. That is a massive difference. And weak glutes are not just about having a flat backside. Research from the American Journal of Physical Medicine and Rehabilitation revealed that seniors with weak gluteal muscles are 67% more likely to experience falls. Falls that can lead to hip fractures, loss of independence, and worse. A separate study from Harvard Medical School found that glute weakness is directly linked to chronic lower back pain, knee problems, and even poor balance that makes simple activities like climbing stairs feel impossible. Now here is the really surprising part. You do not need to do squats. You do not need to do lunges. You do not even need to stand up. Some of the most effective glute strengthening exercises for people over 60 can be done right from a chair. Researchers at the University of Wisconsin discovered that certain seated exercises can produce gluteal muscle activation levels that rival standing exercises. And for anyone with knee pain, hip replacements, or balance concerns, this changes everything. In this video, I'm going to share with you the most effective sitting exercises for rebuilding your glutes after 60. These are ranked from helpful to absolutely essential. And the number one exercise on this list is something that physical therapists have been using for decades to help patients recover from hip surgery. Clinical trials show it can increase glute strength by up to 31% in just 8 weeks. Most people have never heard of it. But once you understand why it works so well, you will want to start doing it today. Let us begin with the exercise that earned the 6th spot on our list. Before we begin, let us know in the comments now your age and where you're watching us from. We read and reply to every single comment, so drop your comments below. Now let us start with exercise number 6 and work our way up to the most important one. Number 6, seated marching. Starting at number 6, we have seated marching. This exercise might look simple, and honestly it is, but do not let that fool you into thinking it is not effective. Seated marching is what exercise scientists call a foundational movement. It wakes up your hip flexors and begins the process of engaging your gluteal muscles in a gentle but meaningful way. Think of it as the warm-up act before the main show. A study published in the Archives of Gerontology and Geriatrics tested seated marching on a group of adults between 65 and 80 years old. After 12 weeks of consistent practice, participants showed a 19% improvement in hip mobility and a 14% increase in lower body coordination. Those numbers matter because mobility and coordination are the building blocks that allow your glutes to function properly in the first place. Here is how you do it correctly for maximum benefit. Sit in a sturdy chair with your feet flat on the floor and your back straight against the backrest. Your knees should be bent at roughly 90 degrees. Now slowly lift your right knee toward your chest as high as you comfortably can without leaning backward. Hold that position for 1 full second at the top. Then lower your foot back to the floor with control. Do not just let it drop. Repeat with your left leg. That is 1 complete repetition. The key to making this exercise actually work for your glutes is the lowering phase. When you lower your leg slowly, your gluteus maximus has to work eccentrically to control the movement. This eccentric contraction is where real muscle building happens. Research from the Journal of Strength and Conditioning found that eccentric movements create up to 40% more muscle tension than lifting alone. Aim for 3 sets of 15 repetitions on each leg. As you get stronger over the coming weeks, you can add a 1-pound ankle weight to increase the challenge. But there is no rush. Consistency beats intensity every single time, especially when you are over 60. Do this exercise at least 3 times per week, ideally at the beginning of your routine to prepare your muscles for the more challenging exercises ahead. Your glutes will thank you. Now let us move to the fifth exercise, which takes things up a notch. Number 5. Seated leg extensions with squeeze. Coming in at number 5 is the seated leg extension with a glute squeeze. This exercise is a bit sneaky because most people think of leg extensions as a quadricep exercise only. And yes, your quads do most of the heavy lifting when you straighten your leg. But when you add a deliberate glute squeeze at the top of the movement, something interesting happens. You create what researchers call co-contraction. This is when multiple muscle groups work together at the same time. A study in the Clinical Biomechanics Journal found that co-contraction exercises improve joint stability by 23% compared to exercises that isolate single muscles. For seniors, joint stability is absolutely critical for preventing falls and maintaining independence. To perform this exercise properly, sit in your chair with your back supported and your feet flat on the ground. Extend your right leg straight out in front of you until your knee is almost completely straight. At this point, here is the important part. Deliberately squeeze your right glute muscle as hard as you can. Hold both the leg extension and the glute squeeze for 3 seconds. You should feel your entire right side working from your thigh all the way through your hip and into your buttock. Then slowly lower your leg back to the starting position while maintaining some tension in your glute. Repeat on the left side. Research published in the Journal of Aging and Physical Activity showed that adding isometric contractions, which is just a fancy term for squeezing and holding, to leg exercises increased muscle activation by 28% in adults over 60. Complete 2 to 3 sets of 12 repetitions per leg. Focus on quality over quantity. Each squeeze should be intentional and strong. If you have trouble feeling your glute engage, try this trick that physical therapists use. Before you lift your leg, place your hand on your glute muscle. Then try to squeeze your glute into your palm as you extend your leg. This mind-muscle connection, as bodybuilders call it, has been scientifically validated. A study from the European Journal of Applied Physiology found that consciously focusing on a muscle during exercise increased its activation by 12 to 18%. Sometimes the smallest tweaks make the biggest differences. The next exercise on our list brings even more intensity. Number 4. Seated hip abduction. At number 4, we have seated hip abduction. Now, abduction might sound like a complicated medical term, but it simply means moving your leg away from the center of your body. When you push your knees outward against resistance, you are doing hip abduction. And this movement directly targets your gluteus medius, which is the muscle on the side of your hip that most people completely neglect. Here is why this matters enormously. The gluteus medius is responsible for keeping your pelvis level when you walk or stand on one leg. When this muscle is weak, your hips drop and sway with every step. Researchers call this the Trendelenburg gait, and it is a major predictor of falls in older adults. A landmark study published in Physical Therapy Journal found that seniors with weak gluteus medius muscles were over twice as likely to fall within the following year compared to those with strong hip abductors. Here is the technique that will give you the best results. Sit on the front edge of your chair with your knees together and your feet flat on the floor about hip width apart. Place your hands on the outsides of your knees. Now push your knees outward against your hands while your hands resist the movement. Your knees should not actually move much if your hands are providing enough resistance. This creates an isometric contraction that fires up your gluteus medius intensely. Hold this push for 5 seconds while breathing normally. Then relax for 2 seconds and repeat. Do not hold your breath during the effort because this can spike your blood pressure. Clinical research from the Journal of Orthopedic and Sports Physical Therapy measured muscle activity during this exercise and found that it activated the gluteus medius at 74% of its maximum capacity. That is exceptional for a seated exercise. For a slightly different version, you can use a resistance band looped around both thighs just above your knees. This allows for actual movement rather than just isometric pushing. Simply sit with the band in place and push your knees apart against the band resistance. Then slowly bring them back together. This dynamic version produced 26% greater improvements in hip stability according to a study in the Journal of Rehabilitation Medicine when compared to isometric holds alone. Aim for 3 sets of 10 holds lasting 5 seconds, each if doing the isometric version, or 3 sets of 15 repetitions if using the resistance band. Either way, your hip stabilizers will become noticeably stronger within 4 to 6 weeks. Exercise number 3 is one you can do absolutely anywhere. Number 3. Seated glute squeezes. Landing at number 3 is the seated glute squeeze. This exercise is so subtle that you could do it in a meeting, at a restaurant, or while watching television. Nobody would even know, but its simplicity is deceptive because it works directly on the mind-muscle connection that is essential for glute activation. Many people over 60 suffer from what exercise physiologists call gluteal amnesia. This is not a joke. Your brain literally forgets how to properly fire your glute muscles after years of sitting. A fascinating study from Ohio State University found that after just 4 hours of continuous sitting, the neural pathways that communicate between your brain and your glutes become significantly less responsive. This reduced communication means that even when you try to use your glutes, they might not fully engage. Seated glute squeezes are specifically designed to rewire these neural connections. The execution is straightforward but requires focus. Sit in any chair with your feet flat on the floor. Without moving your legs or changing your posture, squeeze both glute muscles as tightly as you possibly can. Imagine you are trying to crack a walnut between your buttocks. That visual usually helps people find the right intensity. Hold this maximum squeeze for 5 seconds while continuing to breathe. Then completely relax for 3 seconds. Repeat this cycle 10 times. That is 1 set. Research from the University of Miami showed that performing 3 sets of these focused glute squeezes daily increased gluteal muscle activation during walking by 34% after just 6 weeks. The participants did not get stronger glutes by walking. They got better at using the glutes they already had. The real magic happens when you practice this exercise multiple times throughout the day. Dr. Stuart McGill, one of the world's leading spine biomechanics researchers, recommends what he calls gluteal activation snacks. These are short bouts of glute squeezes done several times daily rather than one long session. His research suggests that 5 sets of 10 squeezes spread throughout the day produces better neural adaptation than 50 consecutive squeezes done once. Set a reminder on your phone for every 2 hours. Each reminder is your cue to do 10 strong glute squeezes wherever you happen to be sitting. Within 2 to 3 weeks, you will notice that your glutes automatically engage more when you stand up, climb stairs, or walk. That automatic engagement is exactly what you are after. Now we are getting to the exercises that deliver serious results. Number 2. Seated single leg glute press. Taking the second spot is the seated single leg glute press. This exercise is a game changer because it addresses a problem that most seated exercises cannot touch. That problem is muscle imbalance. Almost everyone has one glute that is stronger than the other. Usually, it is your dominant side. This imbalance creates uneven stress on your hips, spine, and knees. Over time, the weaker side gets even weaker while the stronger side compensates and often becomes tight. A study in the Journal of Back and Musculoskeletal Rehabilitation found that correcting glute imbalances reduced lower back pain by 41% in adults over 55. That is a dramatic improvement from simply making sure both sides are equally strong. Here is how to perform this exercise with proper form. Sit near the front edge of a sturdy chair with your left foot flat on the ground and your right leg extended straight in front of you, hovering just above the floor. Now press your left foot firmly into the ground while simultaneously squeezing your left glute as hard as you can. Do not actually stand up. Instead, lift your hips just 1 to 2 inches off the chair seat. All of your weight shifts onto your left leg, which forces that single glute to work in isolation. Hold this lifted position for 3 seconds while maintaining the glute squeeze. Then slowly lower back down. Complete all repetitions on one side before switching to the other. This one-sided approach ensures that your weaker glute cannot hide behind your stronger one. Research published in the International Journal of Sports Physical Therapy compared bilateral exercises, where both legs work together, to unilateral exercises, where one leg works alone. The unilateral exercises produced 27% greater activation in the working glute. They also revealed strength imbalances that the bilateral exercises completely masked. Start with 2 sets of 8 repetitions per leg. Focus especially on your weaker side by adding an extra set if needed. Over 6 to 8 weeks, your goal is to equalize the strength between both glutes. You will know you are making progress when both sides feel equally challenged. Many people find that their balance improves dramatically once this imbalance is corrected. That improved balance translates directly to safer walking and fewer fall risks. Finally, we have reached the number 1 exercise on this list. Number 1. Seated glute bridge. The number 1 most effective sitting exercise for rebuilding weak glutes after 60 is the seated glute bridge. Physical therapists around the world consider this the gold standard for gluteal rehabilitation. It was originally developed to help patients recover from hip replacement surgery when standing exercises were too risky. But researchers soon discovered that healthy adults benefited just as much. A landmark clinical trial published in the Journal of Geriatric Physical Therapy followed 120 adults between 60 and 78 years old for 12 weeks. Half of them did traditional standing glute exercises. The other half did seat glute bridges and related chair exercises. At the end of the study, the seated exercise group showed a 31% increase in gluteal strength. The standing exercise group showed only 22%. That 9% difference is statistically significant and clinically meaningful. Let me walk you through the proper technique because small details matter enormously with this exercise. You will need a sturdy chair that does not roll or tip, ideally placed against a wall for extra security. Sit on the front half of the chair seat with your feet flat on the floor, positioned about hip width apart. Your knees should be bent at roughly 90 degrees. Place your hands on the sides of the chair for stability. Now here is the crucial part. Press both feet firmly into the floor and squeeze your glutes tightly. Use that glute power to lift your hips straight up until your body forms a relatively straight line from your shoulders to your knees. Your shoulder blades should remain in contact with the chair back while your hips rise. At the top of the movement, pause and squeeze your glutes even harder for 2 full seconds. Then lower your hips back down with control. Do not just drop down. The lowering phase should take about 3 seconds. What makes this exercise so effective is the combination of factors working together. First, your glutes must work against your full body weight, which creates significant resistance. Second, the chair provides stability that eliminates balance concerns, allowing you to focus entirely on the muscular effort. Third, the position creates an optimal angle at your hip joint that maximizes gluteus maximus engagement. Electromyography studies, which measure electrical activity in muscles, confirm that the seated bridge activates the gluteus maximus at approximately 85% of its maximum voluntary contraction. Very few exercises reach this level of activation. The only exercises that typically score higher are heavy squats and deadlifts, which carry significant injury risk for most adults over 60. For best results, perform 3 sets of 12 repetitions 3 times per week. Rest for 60 to 90 seconds between sets. As you get stronger, you can increase the challenge in several ways. Hold the top position for 5 seconds instead of 2. That extended hold dramatically increases time under tension. Alternatively, try the single leg version, where one foot stays on the ground while the other extends straight out. This variation produced a 44% greater activation in one study compared to the standard version. Another option is placing a light resistance band around your thighs just above your knees. Push your knees outward against the band while doing the bridge, and you will add gluteus medius work to the gluteus maximus work. This combination approach addresses all 3 gluteal muscles simultaneously. There you have it. 6 seated exercises that can transform weak glutes after 60 without ever leaving your chair. Remember that consistency is the key that unlocks all of these benefits. A 12-week commitment is the minimum time frame that clinical studies use for a reason. Muscle adaptation takes time, especially as we age. But the research clearly shows that significant improvements are absolutely possible at any age. The seniors in these studies were not exceptional athletes. They were regular people with regular bodies who simply showed up and did the work. Your glutes are too important to ignore. They affect your walking, your balance, your posture, and your freedom to live independently. Weak glutes are not an inevitable part of aging. They are the result of disuse, and disuse can be reversed with targeted exercise. Start with the seated marching to wake up those muscles. Progress through the list as you get stronger, and make the seated glute bridge your top priority because the evidence shows it delivers the best results. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more evidence-based health information designed specifically for adults over 60. Share this with someone you care about who might benefit from these